So welcome back, everyone. This is chapter 2 of Andrea's course. This is a focus on lyric writing. And because we always got your back, we got a very, very exciting guest with us tonight. Jesse's joining us. I don't know how the icons are appearing in your window, but Jesse's over here.
Hi,
And
everyone.
I think what we're going to do, if you haven't met Jesse, one, shame on you because he's been all over our Song Sung True. So if you want to look at some of the past episodes where Tom spent some time interviewing him, you can do that. I'll, in a second here in the chat, put some access to, I think I brought up his YouTube channel and his Instagram account, and you could see some of Jesse's original music. But I really think tonight, because it's such a big chapter, and again, our goal isn't to touch base on every single thing in the chapter. I think I'll hand it off to Ken. We'll kind of start with a general discussion of how any of the material may have hit you, kind of like we did last week. And then we will be prepared between Jesse and Ken to talk more specifically about destination writing, prosody, and telling the story. So in this chapter on lyric writing, this is the first time that Andrea is kind of like giving us some really specific steps, things you could do to become better at your lyric writing. And there were several things in there, changing the vantage point, telling the timeline of the story. So we're going to go deep on a few of these, but for the first general discussion, we really just want to hear from you and what your general reaction is to that. So Ken, if it's okay, I'll put some of these links in the chat and just hand it off to you.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? I came off a great weekend songwriting, went to a songwriting retreat in Huntsville, Alabama, and got to write with Bobby Tomberlin. I don't know if you know him or not. He's wrote some songs for Dolly Parton and Diamond Rio. So we had a great time. We wrote a great song about a World War II veteran. And I'll share that with, it's on the CAVARTS website. So if you go in there, you can look it up. But I want to hear from you. What did you find? What did you get from chapter 2 in lyric writing? How many people have lyrics as a strength? Who's weakest at lyrics? Maybe stronger in music.
I'm about equally as weak in either of them.
Yeah.
Hey, so I feel like I'm stronger in lyrics, but yet I've not written a song. There's a piece of the program early on that talks about what your style is and what your process is and all this as if we were already doing this. And I took this as a beginner's course, like we're not doing this. I don't know what the process is.
Right.
I'm trying to figure it out. But I know from the fact that I have over many, many years now written down titles or themes that may be a title, some of it may be a theme, and already have some lyrics thought out in my head that I am better lyrically. Obviously not better musically because I only just started for the fourth time again trying to learn how to play. So yeah, lyrically I'm stronger. Still studying. I'm going back to the first lesson, still trying to make my playlist and study. And that's hard for me. A playlist, come on, I'm 52 years old.
Right.
To narrow it down to 10 songs, dang near impossible. So I just tried to cover a few genres. Well, more than a few. Things that either spoke to my soul or made me feel good.
Right.
Both. But all of it come back to the lyrical strength. Yeah, I didn't do the wheel yet, but I like the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, I did too. So whenever it came to writing with your senses, did anybody pick up anything particularly in that exercise when you were having to write, sight, smell, touch, feel? Did anything jump out at you? Did you find it hard or easy?
Some of it jumped out at me. I used to go to rodeos all the time, and the dust in the air and the backing horse into the box and getting ready for the whole event that day. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I found it enlightening to, and going for the distance, a lot of the times you hear the term show, not tell. with writing and all forms of writing, not just writing songs. And you want to show and paint the picture for the listener, just like an artist does, and show them what you're talking about. Don't tell them I'm doing this, this, and this. Show them. Paint them a Birmingham, to steal a line from Tracy Lawrence. Let them see it in their mind's eye. Does anybody have any questions about that? What about some of the other lessons? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, no questions necessarily, but it reminded me of the grounding. Look, I've been through a lot of therapy. I'm not ashamed to admit it, especially right here with a group of veterans. Since 2021, I put myself through a lot, and the grounding things are, talk about three things you can right now in this room. You can taste, feel, see, hear, on, and while you're going through things, or while you're at even an event that's pleasant, never mind that therapy was not necessarily pleasant. Let's say I'm at a ball game, you're not sitting there thinking of the smell of the popcorn and the taste of the beer and the view of the field, or at a drag race with this, yes, at a drag race, I am thinking about the smell of racing fuel. I am, or at any race. But you're not always in the moment thinking of it, but it takes you to that. It takes you back. And doing this exercise took me back to that. When you're, going through things, how are you sensing them? And how can you, to your point, convey that to your audience, like who you're writing to, what you're feeling.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that rolls into, whenever you're telling the story, in lesson 7, we're talking about vantage point, and, how do you keep everything in order? You don't want to be jumping around. How many people have watched a movie and it jumps around in time from here to there, and you can't keep up with it? You're like, what era are we in now? Or what part of the movie are we at this point? Me and my wife were watching something the other day, and it was like that, and I couldn't keep up with it. My attention was going everywhere else, and I wasn't able to focus enough on the movie to keep up with it. So, did anybody pick up anything from lesson 7 and the vantage point and how to keep things on track? Setting the scene.
Well, one of the things that I got out of that was really kind of keeping things in order. I've got a baby song. It's not really a song yet, but it's kind of getting there. And lyric is actually a stronger point to me than the music. Once I have a melody, I can put the music to the melody, but I can't find a melody in the words all the time.
Right.
And so just kind of writing things out on the thoughts on the theme that I'm writing the song on, and not being able to really kind of get them in the right order. Mm-hmm. And after doing the exercises for perspective and putting things in order, I was like, oh, okay, well, the problem is that verse 3 should actually be verse 1, and verse 2 should actually be verse 3, and verse, it just kind of moved things around. And it's like, okay, well, do it like a puzzle, and you can, if you take this out and put it here and take that out and put it here, it makes better sense and flows better and makes it a better story to be told.
Yes. Absolutely. The importance of keeping all that in order, and it makes it, whenever we write, like whenever I write, I brainstorm and I'll write stuff all over my pages, and then I'll connect lines to it, kind of like I did in high school. And then go in and start writing whenever I start writing the verses and the chorus and all that, I have all that beside me and I'm looking at it and I'm, oh, this will be a good, line here. And then whenever you get all that done, then you have to go back and do like you did and rearrange everything, and put it in order. And that takes us to, like lesson 10, point of view. Another important aspect is, getting your point of view, like who's telling the story, who's singing the song. Whenever we were writing the song that I wrote this weekend, it was about a World War II vet. So I was watching the news. So in the first verse, it's about me watching the news and seeing this third party. But then it rolls into what the veteran was saying, the rest of the song. So it goes from he and, that to an I. And we didn't catch that whenever we were writing it originally. And whenever we started singing it, the I jumped out at me. And then this lesson jumped out at me. I was like, hey, you gotta get the point of view right. It's no longer an I. It's no longer a he, it's an I, because he's talking. He's quoting here in this part of the song. So you got to make sure and get that right. Did anybody have any questions or anything about point of view in the lesson 10?
So here I am again. Sorry, I hate to monopolize the mic, but yeah, my thought on that was, and I was late to the lesson again this week, just life. But I've got to do some digging on the difference between vantage point and point of view. Because to me, I got a little confused. Like, how are they not the same?
Right.
So, can you guys share with me, maybe, or maybe you specifically? How do we distinguish? Is it just nuanced, or is it very clear distinction that I'm missing, or what?
For me, vantage point talked about time. And the time where you're writing and keeping it in time sync, right? And then whenever it went over point of view, it was more of he, I, she,
Okay,
that type of thing. Me, mine, first person, third person, second person, that type of thing in the point of view. So you're looking at it, the vantage point being the time signature of the song and how it flows through time, and point of view being the, what's that called in English? I forget, but whenever you're talking to somebody,
the first
or
person
being told,
third,
first person thing, third person point of view.
And the best I could come up with at the time is a vantage point. And let's say I'm rooftop corner of a building looking over a scene, whether I'm the sniper trying to look at what's going on, or just security or whatever. I looked at that as a vantage point, less so than the time, but I can see what you're talking about now. It could be the time period. And then the point of view is, if I'm singing the song or telling the story, it could both be from the vantage point, but also from those engaged in the scene, those people involved.
So what about importance of title? Did anybody come up with some interesting titles?
Well, the title to my baby song is "Playing at the Legion."
Okay, like playing music at the Legion.
Playing music at the American Legion. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
So I did one called "Cracks in the Concrete."
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
It's called "Cracks in the Concrete."
Okay.
It's about point of view, left to right. There is no black and white. It's all gray, concrete gray, and the line between right and wrong can literally just be a crack that can wander around through the concrete.
Oh wow.
But that was one I did.
I want to hear that. That sounds interesting. Is it done, or is it something you're working on, or is it just a title?
Okay, so basically, I have the lyrics written down. That's my.
Okay,
so once
awesome.
the lyrics written down, I have to write the rest of it. I just have to write the rest of it.
Okay, cool. I look forward to hearing that one. It sounds very interesting. The title for the song. Go ahead.
I have one written, and it's actually did the Challenge America up in Georgetown. So the one I wrote was called Descent, and it's literally about flying back from being deployed.
Okay.
Basically plane ride back, looking to get back home. But that one's actually written, so it's a WAV file. So if you want it, I could take it to you.
Sure.
Hey, Pat, I was thinking about Greg's question a little bit.
Right.
She didn't put it in the manual this way, and that worked for you. But tell me what you think of this. So the difference between like vantage point and point of view. let's say there's a car accident and you're the driver and you have a passenger. So the point of view is you could sing the song from the driver's perspective. I was driving along and all of a sudden passed a red light and got hit. And that would also be for vantage point first person, if I'm talking about what I'm doing.
Mhm.
If I write the song and I get into a car accident and I start talking to you from my passenger's perspective, so I'm not saying I anymore, I'm saying the person next to me. But I change my vantage point, obviously, and the point of view. So it's, the point of view is me. And if I'm thinking about now what's happening from the eyes of how I'm seeing the driver reacted, it changes the point of view. And I think the vantage point, you know, has kind of that. I like what Greg said about kind of a sniper position, you know, changing the vantage point.
Mhm.
Just like in a car accident, if you are in the car or someone's outside of the car, that changes your vantage point. But I think she was referring to kind of past, present, and future on the subject. So yeah, it was a little confusing, but I think I kind of think a point of view as kind of who's telling the story. Is it me? Am I telling it about, so am I using I did this, or am I telling you about my friend who is in the driver's seat? So I'm saying, you know, he or they, or is it third person? I'm telling you about someone I read about. And then vantage point helps us kind of look at thinking of whatever that story is. If it's about a car crash, what was happening before, during, and after the crash.
Hey, and Paul, to that point, thank you for that. And to that point, she does mention when at least as I recall, writing a song or singing the song, initially it's current, and then she goes back to what happened previous to that, and then what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, that might make the most sense of anything, yeah, that I've thought about so far in terms of
Look at
point
you,
versus point.
look at you digging into the material. That's great.
It was a vantage point. Is that when she was talking about like seeing things from a vantage point of a hurricane? Or was that a different section?
I'm not sure that was vantage. That might have been
Yeah, point of
point
view.
of view.
Got it.
Actually, I don't know, like the lyrical lens was one of her exercises as well. And that's kind of where you could take something like a hurricane. I mean, she basically
Mhm.
says a list of nouns and start with your list of nouns. So that could open that wide up in terms of the lyrical lens.
Yeah, that was a great lesson too. Just the thought of taking another song and applying a different point of view or lens to it and changing it up.
Yeah, I want to connect kind of. So last week, one of the last conversations we had was something around when do you know that you're a songwriter? I mean, the name of this class is Becoming a Songwriter. And I agree with some of you, like she's giving you concepts that would seem like, well, it's not like I got 4 or 5 half-baked songs in my bag that I could pull out. I'm really starting from scratch. But I think part of the difficulty for some of us in saying I'm a songwriter, as we talked about last week, was, well, I don't, what's the songwriting process? I mean, if we can't really define what our process is, it might be hard for us to call ourselves a songwriter. But I do think as you go through this, if you don't feel an absolute yes to that answer to that question, it's kind of on you to kind of figure out how Andrea's like coaxing you along to give you more confidence to say that. And I would say in this chapter was the first time, and you're going to see more of this, but there were several times, more so in the video than on her PDF course book, where she's telling you, she's using phrases like make a daily practice habit of. So whether that's destination writing or some of the other exercises she's giving you, she's kind of laying out, you know, you kind of know you're a songwriter when you're doing these daily practice. It doesn't have to be daily, but you have a practice routine that is consistent with whether in this case it's lyrics. We'll see next week it's harmony. You know, so all of you that learn how to play guitar, at some point you allowed yourselves to wear the title of I'm a guitar player. And just like you had to develop the callus stage and you had to get chording down and some chord transitions, I mean, I kind of think this is the early walk for us that are reluctant to use the title of songwriter yet, because I mean, how can I be a songwriter if I quote don't have a song yet? So kind of listen to her when she's talking about a practice routine or a daily habit. I mean, those are the actual rubber meets the road kind of exercises. She's saying we could start doing these now. All of the things she talked about in the lyric writing were things that will be your go-to notebook to develop ideas. We talked, I won't belabor the point, but we talked last week about on my list was baseball. And we have John Fogerty's center field, and there's a lot of things that happen between that being on the list and it becoming a song. But that's kind of these skills. She's showing you how it comes off of your list and becomes a song.
All right, Jesse, are you ready to cover prosody?
Yeah, sure thing. So I know most of y'all are pretty early in the process of learning guitar and writing songs and lyrics and everything. So I'll just kind of give a brief overview of prosody that I see it as. So it's taking the musical elements, that's going to be like melody or like rhythm, all that good stuff, to enhance the emotional element or impact of the lyrics, so that the lyrics and the music are working together to create a better impact. If we're just honing in on lyrics too, so say just taking a normal chord, so just a C, just playing a C chord, what kind of like emotions come to the surface when you're playing that C? Like you can start off early with that. Just even if you want to do a one chord groove, just stay in that C. What kind of emotions kind of come to the surface? Or if you're more in a sad or minor mood, you can take like an A minor. What kind of emotions come out of that? So yeah, I would highly recommend just kind of getting a little groove while you're starting out early. I mean, it could be simple too. I mean, it doesn't have to be too elaborate or anything, but just kind of play a chord and see what emotions come to the surface. And then maybe press pause, do the Andrea's 6-minute destination writing. Don't be too hard on yourself with it. I mean, you're just going for the details, what Ken was talking about earlier, just like the sight, sound, all the sensory effects that you can kind of think of, and get into the details. So especially if you're working on verses, you want the details, the external kind of details of bringing us into something. So I should start. So destination writing it's a form of object writing that Andrea uses. So it focuses on a person, a place, or a time. So just kind of where an object writing, you can just take a capo and describe a capo, like you're just honing in on that object and then running off the stream of consciousness from that. But destination writing just really, focuses on person, place, or time. So, do you want me to keep going? Just kind of what I'm thinking.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jesse, one of the things I loved how you talked about like vamping on a C chord and then vamping on the minor chord, because as a new guitar player, it doesn't hit our ear really quickly, but the whole idea of the different feelings that minor chords emit versus major chords. Andrea did something interesting as well. She stayed on, I think it was just a G chord, and she was singing the phrase, hold on, but she was thumping with down strums on the bass strings of the G chord, and she was kind of singing hold on in a rocky voice.
Yeah.
Then she just started finger picking a G and singing hold on while she was like holding the lyric out a little bit. And it was just a complete same chord, difference between how she was strumming and finger picking and how she was singing it out. But it sounded like two completely different hold ons.
Yeah. And that's where prosody comes in too. Like it's how you're playing the guitar, like you're saying, like she was finger picking it and holding it out more. Those elements working together.
I think another example is there are prosody is kind of that whole dance she said between the emotion emitted by the musicality and then the words and kind of the synergy of the two.
Yep.
And so I could give you, I'm sure you all could think of some of this, but I'll just give you one example. I could give you a lyrical phrase with no music, and I will just try and speak it out flatly. And as soon as it comes out of my mouth, you will hear it in the context of the music and that's what prosody is. Because if there wasn't any synergy there, you would just hear my English words coming out to you and you'd be like, it wouldn't emote anything. So let me try it. I'll try this. We will rock you. It's really hard to not hear that and kind of hear the beat to it and know the anthem song that, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I don't know if there's any Prince fans, but I Never Meant to Cause You Any Sorrow is the lyric behind the beautiful 4-chord progression in Purple Rain. And so that's prosody. It's where it's taking language by itself or music by itself, smashing them together and creating something beautiful, whether that's a sad emotion, an inquisitive emotion, a happy emotion.
Yep.
Well, and there the challenge would be to those are two great examples that we all know. But to your point, like if we're writing and we're trying to create that emotion, what are we writing that's brand new that creates that same like immediate response that Ken had or that I had? Like, Purple Rain is definitely on my playlist, by the way. That started with the first lesson. But yeah, how do we do that? Yeah, I mean, it's rhetorical, not necessarily a rhetorical question, but to your point, how do we make that happen without it being something we've already heard?
Yeah, I think Andrea's answered, and I'm not saying I know how to do this. And I'd be interested in your thoughts, going through this, Jesse. But what Andrea's saying is first tap into your genuine self, and some of these writing exercises do that. When Jesse's talking about the destination writing or the sensory writing, the reason we want it to be non-judgmental is because it's really more about expanding like a capo or expanding a baseball into bits and pieces that then eventually become more of a theme and then that you could wrap a lyrical story idea around. I don't know, Jesse. I mean, kind of the big question always is lyrics or music first. Maybe it's true that they often come sometimes simultaneously, but it's probably a false dichotomy. But what advice would you have for people kind of just new to this, trying to like create something that's their own, that's genuine, that's, that you could dance?
Yeah, I guess it depends where you're coming from. Like if you know any music, if it's choir, any other instrument other than guitar, then if you're more musically inclined, start there. If you don't really have much experience with musical instruments or it's all very new to you, start with the lyrics and then I know how I started was music or lyrics first. Like I would sometimes go into the music, like get a rhythm and try to come up with a melody, either just humming something or sometimes with just adding words here and there. But I like to have a clear kind of idea where I want to go. Sometimes it's with a title, but sometimes it's a theme. Um, but I'll now or what I learned from my time at Berkeley online was I definitely thrive more in starting with the lyrics or having a better picture of what I want to write about. So it for me it's very hard to take a chord progression like a 3/4 chord progression and then try to write the melody, write the lyrics together. It's tough. Like I can do it. It's not my strong suit. So I like to focus on the lyrics, definitely.
Would you say the lyrics inform what you're looking for then from a chord progression? Because if you've got the majority of the lyrics, you already kind of know if it's going to be happy or sad or.
Yeah. Yeah. So like just the other day I was working on something. Um I knew I wanted to keep it in a minor tone, like what was the line? You're courting fear like a matador. Let me see if I got it over here. Except now you're the one that's chasing red. So like I kind of wanted to flip that lyrical bull matador theme or imagery.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted it in a minor key. So I had that idea and I wrote like the first verse and then I was playing around with E minor to A minor and got it to fit pretty good. So um still working on the full song, but that was like one example, like where I had just an idea, even like a lyric line, and kind of got a first verse written out and then fit some music to it with a chord progression.
Do you literally have a notebook and a pen that you use?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Most of the time it's in my notebook, but sometimes if I'm co-writing with someone, I'll do like a Google Doc. But definitely my phone's also a great. I mean, just taking notes for titles. I'll write whenever something catches my eye. Never been good at goodbye. Pop that in my notes. Like just write down that title for future. Like if you're struggling, like think of something that day. You got this list of titles just to like, well, let's write about that one. So, so yeah, notebook, phone, Google Docs, all that good stuff. So it helps.
It is
Yeah,
funny when you start to hear like things and conversations differently. I was talking to a friend of mine and she was just talking about her past and she said the phrase, and I'm not saying this would be a title, but there's every once in a while you might hear something that hits your ear and you're like, there's something there. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. And the phrase she said, yeah, I spent a lot of time in my basement. It was just me in my basement with a record player. And I'm like, basement and record player, basement and record.
Yep.
There's a story in there.
Yep. Yeah, you write those down too. It
Mhm.
doesn't always have to be a title, like yeah, like a little
Phrase.
theme or yeah, a little scenario or in a sense. So yeah, write it down.
Yeah.
And a funny thing related to that, there's all kind of note taking apps. I was in the professional world for a long time, and there's OneNote and Evernote and this, that, and the other, and there's just Notepad as far as your apps are concerned. But on my OneNote, in exactly what we're just talking about, one of my titles is write it all down.
Like sitting in a burned out basement.
Yeah, literally just write it all down.
Sitting
Yeah.
in my burned out basement with only a record player. I think we're onto something, Jay.
Nice.
Yeah, I like writing it. Something about having the pen in my hand and hitting the paper and
Mhm.
writing it out just feels so much better than typing it on my
Oh,
my
I
keyboard.
agree. I agree. But there's just
know.
some places and sometimes when that pen and paper is not handy.
Right.
I do like that feeling a whole lot more. You're not wrong, and I remember it better if I write it physically.
Mm.
Right.
But yeah, we just don't have that all
It's just-
all the time.
It's something about it. It feels like it's just flowing straight from my brain and out onto the paper, you know.
Yep.
And you get it. It's more disconnected whenever I'm using my phone. I don't know what it is.
I will say that I have found, like, I think there's kind of the non-judgmental, unedited flow of creativity that you just got to get out, pen and paper. What I like when something starts deforming, though, something about like the word processing and visually kind of seeing what begins to be verses and choruses. And one of you mentioned earlier that, yeah, I wrote a song and really my third verse is probably should be my first verse because you're now using these filters that Andrea's teaching us. And something about the word process where I can actually like cut and paste and
Yeah.
move it around. There is kind of a
Yeah.
point for me where once it's half baked, it almost feels better to be moving the blocks around and then editing that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
There's definitely something to that too. Like just once it's more in a concrete form, yeah, having it in a word processor so you can kind of do what Paul said, just kind of shift it around if you need to, or yeah.
And sometimes the lesson I have to learn hard is that the delete button is my best friend. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jesse. So you were talking to us about prosody and destination writing. Was there more you wanted to tell us?
Um, I think I covered most of that. I wanted to touch on those. Like I also wanted to say like with I know something that they hammered with lyrics at Berkeley when I was there was maintaining the natural shape of the language. So like when you're writing lyrics or making them into melodies, um, just being cognizant of like the rhythm, where the pauses are, if you're stopping on or emphasizing like and you don't want to do that because it's not an important word. I mean, it ties two things together, but like you want to be stressing like the bigger words, the adjectives, the adverb, like I mean, the describing words, like the bigger words, the meatier words. You want to be emphasizing those, not yeah, just a small to or and or something. So maintaining the natural shape of the language, I think that was also one thing. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on briefly. Yeah, I think that
I was trying to remember the example that Andrea used in the video. It was a famous female blues singer. Etta James is At
Etta
Last.
James, yes.
How
At
just
last.
carried it like just at
Mm.
last, but carried that last way out. And then she sang it really quickly. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just two words, but it was kind of the whole kind of tie in with the destination writing, kind of the description. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. I mean, for me, it's easier to describe kind of uh, places and events. It's harder for me persons. I don't know why that is, but I always love like say the beginning of so here's another example of prosody. I could say this line, you'll absolutely know because the prosody kicks in what I'm talking about. On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of colitas. So he's hitting all the senses, rising up through the air. It's just a great, just a great way to bring the listener in because it's tap in everything. You're surrounding them with the description of it.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah,
didn't hit, you didn't hit 2 of my 10 playlist songs.
You keep saying
Good
10,
job.
Greg, but we know that your playlist is like 500 songs long.
It's more than 1,000, but for this exercise, we had to do 10, and it was.
That's right. Yeah.
You know that song by Queen, We Will Rock You?
Yeah.
It was actually developed to get the audience to participate in the song.
Mhm.
The genius of Brian May.
Yep. But they wanted the audience to come up with bring the band on stage.
Does anyone have more examples from your own perspective on kind of that synergy of lyrics and music called prosody, or anything from the destination writing exercise that you guys went through? If not, I think I'm going to ask Ken to talk a little bit about telling the
Telling
story.
the story. Yeah, that's great. So in my songwriting, I love to tell stories. The song we wrote this weekend is titled Too Mean to Die. It's about a World War II veteran who was turned 105 at the time. And he survived the beach of Normandy, the invasion on Normandy, and survived through all of that. And the reporter asked him what his secret to life was, and he said, I really don't know. The devil don't want me. The Lord won't have me. I guess I'm just too mean to die. And whenever I read that, I was like, oh my God, I got to write a song about it. So I dug in and I started writing this song, and I was like, I want to tell about the newscast, how I found it. So it starts out with saw an old man on the news who fought in World War II. From the lines on his face, he'd seen a thing or two. Survived the Great Depression, farming in that Nebraska heat. Survived those bloody beaches down on Normandy. When that reporter asked him, "What's your secret to life?" the old man looked him dead in the eyes. "I don't have a secret. I'm asked that all the time. Hell, I ain't gonna lie. The devil, he don't want me. The Lord, he won't have me. So I guess the only reason why is I'm just too mean to die." You know, you go through that and you're telling the story, you know, and then that's where it changes. It goes from, you know, the old me watching this old man to the old man telling this story, and the next verse is 18 years old, shipped far from home, sent to fight an evil the world has never known. Why I survived while many met their fate, saddled with all this guilt. Let me shoot it to you straight. And it goes back into the chorus. You know, we had to keep everything in line and straight, but where that I is where we actually had why he survived originally. And so we caught it and we're like, no, this is him talking. So we have to change it to the I. And that was just a big part of bringing the story home and letting it land like it did. And telling a story is so important in a song for me because I'm a storyteller. My songs, you know, I'm a big country guy, so 3 chords and the truth. That's the way I was raised and the way I want to do my songs. Yeah, that's what I got out of storytelling. And so I was actually sitting there in front of right across from Bobby Tomberlin, who's this big Nashville songwriter, you know, who's done it for years. And I'm sitting there like, oh, you know, this class we're taking by Andrea Stolpe, she talks about doing this. And, you know, I'm sure he's thinking like, okay, I've but it was trigger. I mean, it was, you know, firing off in my brain as I was out there doing it, you know, the things I'm learning in this class. And that was one of them. So whenever you know, she asked us to revisit the sensory writing and look for language that sets the scene and sets the character. You know, consider how this language could become the first several lines in your song. Did anybody do that and come up with some lines of a song for their own?
Working on one right now.
Okay. You want to share it?
I'll go for it. Why not? Sitting on my front porch, watching people walk by, looking down the driveway across the street, wondering what all those people did when they were alive. All the babies who died so soon, and that's where I am. I live across from the cemetery.
Okay. There's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
My wife and I actually like going to cemeteries and walking around and reading the year dates and things like that.
So I have one that was I thought it was relatively recent because it reminds me of recent things, but apparently I dated it of 11/8/2021. No title. Says, yes, my pain and suffering is self-induced, but it's still real. I treat mine with beer and bourbon. You treat yours with a pill. My soul is troubled. My heart is weary. They won't think of you. Certainly won't write or call, and I just haven't finished it. But
yeah, that's some good stuff. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got one.
All right.
When I walked through the door, I looked at the sights, the battered old bar and the neon lights. I was greeted by old friends I'd never met before. That one came from, there was a little bit more to it. The smell of stale beer and forgotten dreams proves that impressions aren't all that they seem. And then trying to play on the dichotomy of the smell of stale beer. Most people would say that's a bad thing, but for me, it brings up a lot of memories.
Yeah.
Of working in bars and that first smell that hits you in your face when you open it up after it's been closed. If you've ever worked in a bar or a restaurant and had that smell hit you, smell is so memory intensive that it's kind of a good memory to me, and working it into making it seem like a good memory.
Yeah, that's great. Is that part of your baby song?
Yes, it is.
It's going to be great.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't
very
wait to hear the
good.
finishing it.
That was very good. I like, just circling back to Ken's comment earlier, that very is the show not tell, like giving us a lot of detail, build an image in our minds. So yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to walking into a bar, meeting old friends I'd never met. I like that. Yeah, I traveled a lot, and that was my place to go. Was just the local pub, and because you're always welcome.
And there's always smells and sights and sounds and things that it goes across multiple people. We'll feel that and understand it, like the stale beer. Everybody just about has smelled that stale beer smell. So they can relate to it. And for many of us, it'll bring it back, and it'll our brains will fire off and be like, "Oh, the last time I smelled that, this is what happened," or it'll take you back. And those songs are great. And that's what people connect with songs, is the things that bring us together, and can bring us back to a certain spot in time, when if things aren't going right, maybe take you back to where things were better. you know um
I have
I
to
know.
say that part of what this chapter did, I thought I was a pretty big listener to music, but going through her song examples, like she gave Pharrell's Happy as an example,
Hmm.
where you start where the music and the lyrics match, and his imagery about a roof without a room, like all this like a happy stuff. And then how she analyzed, so the second verse comes when it might not, or no, that something bad is foreboding and coming. And I mean, I can't tell how many times I've listened to that song and still was not able to step out of it. And I think part of what she's doing is giving us these analytical tools to now look at songs again, because I'm a guitar player, I always use analogies. One of the things I get excited about is when our students start saying, "Hey, I went to a coffee house to watch this guy to watch some live music," and I'll be like, "Yeah, and what did you look at?" And they'll say, "I watched their fretting hand." Yes, you did. And they're looking for the G's and the D's and the C's. Well, I think Andrea's given us tools now to kind of listen lyrically to some of these songs. Well, here's another example. Point of view was one of the things she talked about, and she talked about it as a strategy, like, either to go to a song that and change a point of view, or if you have some of your own songs and change a point of view, and just how powerful that can be. When I read that, I was trying to think of like, well, what songs are out there where, the narration changes like that, like goes from third person to first person, or vice versa. And I couldn't think of any. And I don't know if you got any that you could think of offhand. So I Googled it, and one of the first things that came up was Simon and Garfunkel's Boxer. And I never realized that. The first three verses are, I, and then he ends with, "In the clearing stands a boxer." He's narrating now kind of third person. And that little switch it's really powerful for the listener, in terms of like, it's a whole different side of the story that you're getting to see now, because they gave you permission to look at it from a different side.
Yeah, and that's one of the tricks I used in I wrote a song about parental alienation with my son, and I started it out, a father and a son, the whole song about losing my son. And then at the end, whenever it finished, the tag at the end, I went back to the first part of the verse where it says, "Alone in a courtroom, gavel's heavy sound, a father's heart is breaking, he's lost and all but found." So I switched it and changed father to mother, at the end. That way it ends with you thinking about a mom, because whenever we think about things like that, fathers aren't really thought of as important a parental role as a mother is. So whenever you get to the end of the song and it flips it on its ear, you know, a mother, and then now you're thinking about all that stuff I just said happening to a mom. So it may attack you emotionally a little bit different than it had before. And I got that actually from a movie, Time to Kill with Samuel L. Jackson. Whenever at the end, when Matthew McConaughey's given his final defense, and at the end of it, he says, "Now imagine that girl was white." And, you know, rural Mississippi back in the 60s, and a whole white jury up there for that. And, you know, the faces all changed. You know, that flipped their thought on that whole speech that he just gave. And that's what I was hoping for with my song, and changing that point of view from that of a father to a mother. Well, I guess not really a point of view, but more, I guess, lyrical lens.
There's a song where it's in third person, and the narrator's telling you about a relationship between a guy and a girl. And the first three verses, it's really kind of about the girl and how she's not ever been able to be happy or content, and it goes through a series of relationships. And it's the fourth verse, it's like the last line, where then you now learn, because he uses the pronoun I, that the narrator who's telling the story, he was the male in the story that he was telling you when he was using he and she through the first three verses. And it was kind of jarring. It's like, oh, I didn't really see that coming.
Cher has a song out that goes to the aspect of a man telling his kids goodbye because the mother lost one, but she's singing it as the man.
Not to be confused with the Kinks Lola, right? That's a whole different change. Joseph says, Blake Shelton, Austin is narrated by the guy and the girl. The voice mail is coming from him, but oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, and this is what I mean, for me at least, because I'm so new to this, Andrea's giving me a way to kind of, I think she even said it once, in one of these tools, by kind of stepping back and using the skill set she's given for the lyric writing, it's kind of a way to diagram a song in a way that I wouldn't have thought of, like with Happy, and it's just like, makes a lot of sense. And so I'm going to just say that's kind of feels like the beginning step of becoming at least a lyric writer.
Yeah.
Well, and whether this is a title or maybe a line in a song for me, but Paul, through your talking recently, the last few things you've said, it's made me think of what I do, but it's a line that listen lyrically to life. And that's kind of what I do. I listen lyrically to life. I hear things that people say or at a bar or in a movie or just in general, and I go, that's a song, that's a song. Or a song title or a line in a song. Like, it's something we can build around. And if we listen lyrically to life, we can find so many opportunities.
Yeah, I would bet you there's probably some sort of study that correlates how well of a listener you are to how good of a songwriter you are.
I hope that's not the case. I'm a terrible listener sometimes.
Maybe I shouldn't say listener. Maybe I should say observer.
Yeah, well, and see, that's where Ken and I would have the opposite effect. I think my observation skills these days are horrible. And a great example, I'm sitting at a bar today, and it's kind of an L-shaped bar, and I'm sitting facing the wall where the taps are. A buddy of mine, another veteran, he's sitting 2 seats down where I can see his drink, and I literally looked past the shaker where the rest of his drink was, and just saw his little bitty martini type glass. And I went, man, this little bitty tiny glass. I looked straight past the shaker. So my observational skills are not that great anymore. Maybe they never were. I don't know. But my listening skills are pretty good. So it's like vice versa. I think both. And if we can tap into both and work on both, we can be more observational and better listeners. And with the good Lord, the amount of the songs abound then, because who's not creating life around us? You don't have to go out of the house. Don't get me wrong. You could listen to birds sitting in the camper. You can sit outside. You don't have to go to town. But if you venture out at all, or if you open your eyes and ears at all, the opportunities abound to write something. I just got to do it.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything else on telling a story?
I got the one my dad. I'm trying to put him back in the Korean War, where it was 51. He was off the war, left his home on the Jersey Shore. They made him a grunt. He was sent to the front. Him and so many, so young and alone, fighting like hell. It damn sure wasn't home, or something like that. Just
Yeah.
tweaking it up a little.
That sounds
I
good.
think it's awesome you guys are sharing your art with us. I do want to ask, and Jesse, please weigh in, but I think she raised this question in this chapter, and I'm interested in what you guys think about it. On one hand, last week she was telling us we need to tap into why we love the music we love, because that starts to inform us. We need to be we need to write what we know. So we need to be, kind of generally kind of figure out ourselves. But it was in this week, as we're talking on starting to write out now the events that we want to write about, where she asks, how do you know if it's good? So if you come up with a verse, how do you know it's good? And I think she gave a hint to an answer to that, but I'd be really interested if you guys got feedback on that.
I bounce mine off my wife. And she's brutally honest with me, so she'll tell me if it's crap or not.
Well,
so,
go get her. We got all the stuff we want to run by her.
Oh, she wouldn't do that for anybody else. She's way more polite for everybody else, but she's brutally honest with me, which makes it all work well.
Yeah, and without giving the idea away, I don't know how you do it. I mean, to me, frankly, I've been very clear. I sit around a bar a lot, and it would be something like, "Hey, that's a line in a song," and the people around the bar would go, "Yeah, you're right. That makes sense." But until you write it and send it out amongst the world, how do you know?
I think
You
part of
bounce
it
it
is
off.
too, who is your audience? Are you writing it for yourself? Then only you have to like it. If you're trying to sell records, it's a whole different story. If you're trying to play it at the VA, well, that's your audience you got to make happy. So it's part of your definition of what's good or not. Who's the judge?
And this is definitely, I monopolized the mic too much. I'm sorry. But I want to apologize for this one. You mentioned your dad, Randy, about being in Korea. I came home from the Army and I lived next door to a guy. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is I'd like to make this a collaborative effort. I came home and lived next door to a guy who'd been in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he was 3 tours in Vietnam. And when he got out of Vietnam, he went to work for the sheriff's department. And then when he retired from the sheriff's department, he went to work for the sheriff's department boys home. This guy needs a monument built for him. And I didn't dig into his story. I don't know his past. I don't know if there's dirt that maybe that's why it hadn't happened. But he needs, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. 3 tours in Vietnam and the sheriff's department. The guy was amazing, and I'd come home and he'd cut my grass, and he was just calm and cool and collected. And, that's the kind of people that need songs written about them.
Yeah.
Anyone else on how do you know if it's good or not? Other than Ken's wife?
She's
I
not
do a
for
similar thing, but I try not to be too critical early on. Like if I have an idea, I want to see it at least until it's like first verse chorus, like before I get too judgmental. get the idea out first. I think I probably even learned that in Andrea's class. Like just kind of get the idea out before you start like editing and being too critical. Um, Once you get that kind of bones of it, then maybe you can kind of, oh, this doesn't work. This maybe try this. But um, to answer your question though, like to know it's good, I think it's like the audience who you're playing it for. Um, if you're comparing it to other songs, like can you see someone cutting this, or like could you hear this on the radio? Um, if not, what could I improve to make it that way? Or I think that's kind of the lens I'd go through.
I think one of the things Andrea said, and this kind of goes back to like when we make our list in last week's lesson about what we know, what's us, and you have this list and you might think it's really mundane, and how many other people are also going to have, you know, baseball, and I love artwork and I love dogs, and that's not the point. I think what she's trying to say is in knowing yourself, and I'll use Jesse as an example with what he just told us about kind of the red flag and bullfighting. I think one of the things when you're not writing for yourself, and I also agree with whoever said it depends on who your audience is. That's really, really critical. But if you're writing for the world, anything that has, I'm trying to remember her language, universality to it, or is very relatable for a large body of people, um, is kind of one of the very first steps, I would think. So Jesse talked about a lyric that he's kind of working with, not knowing anything yet about what his song is or anything, just the idea of a bull and what that means, like a bull charging at us. I mean, you could do destination writing on just this topic, you know, the feelings and all those associated when your life is going crazy and it feels like this out of control bull, yet it's coming at you. So there's kind of a whole bunch of universal feelings with that. This whole idea of seeing red, which is kind of the pinnacle of how bad it is, yet the the bull person, the bullfighter, is showing the red and then can step away, hopefully. I mean, so there's a lot of like intrigue in there and a lot of what could be, I think, something relatable. When you just think about bull and bullfighting, it's like, okay, what about it? But as you start to write it into a story and into characters, there's a lot to that that could be universal. I don't know what you guys thought, but one of the things Andrea did in this week was do you remember when she was describing July 4th with her brother? So this was her example with destination writing. I swear she went on with what seemed like 20 minutes, and it's all she did, and unless she practiced this, she closed her eyes and she was remembering 4th of July with her brother, to the point where she was talking about the smell of those burning snakes. You know, do you remember the snake things you'd
The
light?
rubber ones.
I mean, that was amazing. I kind of watched that a few times because I'm like, that was just like this free flow of there's so much there that could be turned into maybe not a song, but again, the bits and pieces that begin to become the brookstones of this river you're trying to cross that turn into a song. And that takes skill. I don't know that I can like remember in that detail, and so the filter was, as she's remembering, sight, sound, hearing. I mean, she's purposely employing that. But I think this idea of it being relatable, I guess maybe that's a better word than universal. It's something, when you have a turn of a phrase, it's very relatable. So go forward, Jesse. I'm already buying into the whole angst with the bull and the red flag.
Yeah, like the key idea I guess I was going for is like the the adrenaline chasing after like a post deployment. So use that kind of imagery. Like, so I got the kind of abstract kind of catch phrase, and then I'll weave in the high stakes poker or like other adrenaline chasing things. So but yeah, a lot of different directions you can kind of go with that, and that's kind of what I was kind of going for with that theme.
Another thing with the red flag is the alternative meanings of red flag. There's a red flag that the bull is charging.
Mm-hmm.
There's seeing red, meaning you're angry. That's a red flag right there, meaning warning, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can incorporate all of these different types of meanings and coming from different directions on just the red flag imagery right there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
I
good.
and I think Andre would say, run with that with a piece of paper and a pen in your hand, and just don't edit, just kind of keep all that going. And then, and in fact, she said it several times, then you just put it away. It's
Yep.
there for you to revisit later. It's there for you to expand on. Someone's going to say something a day later, or you're going to think of something that's going to be, oh, that's kind of fits in that theme. And that's why all the great ones, you know, James Taylor in an interview said the saddest day he ever had was when his notebook got stolen.
Mm,
And he's a notebook guy. He keeps everything in his notebook.
yeah.
So we're getting in the chat a lot of point of view songs. We have Whiskey Lullaby. We have Picture by Sheryl Crow and Kid Rock. Angel from Montgomery. So yeah, there's a lot out there. You all know how to Google too, don't you? All right, Ken, did you have anything else for us?
No, I'm good. If anybody's got any questions or anything, let me know.
Yeah, because I was going to say, oh, I just had a blast from my past. Someone put in Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I was
Meatloaf.
17, 18 when that came out, and I had the picture disc of that album. I don't even know if you know what that is. Instead of just black vinyl, it was the album cover imprinted. And of course, that album cover art was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Meatloaf
a
did
baseball
everything
song.
out of the.
What's that?
That's a baseball song.
Okay, you could say that. That could be your point of view.
Well,
Home
hey,
run.
when you talk about somebody being a notebook guy, I've mentioned last week.
Yeah, Greg, we know it's on your set list, right?
Hang on. No. This is about that documentary about It All Begins with a Song. There's a guy on there that had 17 years worth of notes in a notebook, and it got stolen out of his Jeep.
I think Taylor Swift stole it. I think that's why she's so good.
Probably.
She got it
I
all.
think you're onto something, Paul. I think you're onto something.
That guy was writing all these breakup songs. So we have Jesse with us. Jesse's kind of obviously walked the walk in maybe ways that we haven't. Jesse, I wanted to ask you if you think, well, let me just ask you, when is there a point in your life where you kind of said, I'm a songwriter?
I'd say pretty early on. I can't remember exactly when because this is going back 20 some years, but I kind of had phases of it though. Like it would be like I'm a songwriter. I have much to learn. Sort of like
But don't ever lose that.
yeah. And there's always new like you're gonna pick up. So like being a continuous learner, but still like if you're putting music out there, you're putting lyrics out there, even if it's just lyrics right now, I would, if it's in song form, you're a songwriter, you know? And that's kind of how I viewed it or early on, even like when I was working on more of the music learning, but still focusing on the lyrics.
So
it was early.
Here's what I want to ask you. So you said 20 years you've been carrying that title.
Yeah.
What would the Jesse of today, what advice would Jesse of today give to Jesse of 20 years ago, starting out as a songwriter, where you could give advice around shortcuts or skills you wish you practiced more back then? I mean, what would you give yourself advice on that would help on the journey?
Let's see. Best advice.
And you're not allowed to use Ken's wife.
Yeah. Best advice. Let's pick like maybe two or three things. So I would say every great song or every good song out there, there's going to be like chord progressions that are common. Learning those common chord progressions and playing with those instead of, I know I would just, when I was starting out, like I didn't know that. So I just play random chords. I don't even know what, like, I didn't know 1 4 5. I didn't know like the common chord progression. So like learning those, and you can Google that. Like I got it in my
Oh,
Berkeley
they're not,
Harmony.
no, they're not gonna Google it. They're gonna go to the Guitar Player's Toolkit. We have a
Oh,
whole
yeah.
chapter, we have a whole chapter on chords in the family and then how you number those chords. And it's funny you say that because the post I put in today was lyrically of a Louis Capaldi song, and it was just the whole, I'm pretty sure the whole song is, it's a 4 chord song. It's a 1 6 5 4 song.
Yep.
And I love that you're saying that because as guitar, like I would say that my skill isn't lyric writing, it is chord progression. So I'd rather, I have like 30 chord progressions, but I need lyrics. And you're saying, well, lyrics come easier to you. So I love that advice, but we do try and make it really easy. I know some of you are newer guitar players, but that material is there and it was written in a way that's just for, I want to start creating some music using my guitar because it then leads into lyric, and creating songs and stuff like that. So check out the Guitar Player's Toolkit in CAVARTS.
And the
Thank
chord
y'all
wheel.
for that. Yeah, thank y'all for that. And thank you, Ken.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. So that was tip one.
Yep. Tip one, learn the common chord progressions. And I mean, there's tool, it's a tool, not a rule. So I mean, like you can,
Vary from
you
it.
got a, you got a common chord progression. Maybe I want to add one more chord, or I don't like this one chord in this song. I'm gonna take that one out. But uh, what I said earlier, maintaining the natural shape of the language. When I was starting out early on, like I'd add stresses to just words that didn't have much substance. So just stressing, like for instance, I'll think of one of my early songs. Um, Looking back at what I've seen, so like I'd be on back and seeing like just there isn't much to that phrase. So like one, I was kind of like telling and not showing. So that's part of it too. Um, but yeah, maintaining a natural rhythm or flow to a phrase and kind of being cognizant of that too. So if you're, because you want to fit these words to music. So just not having weird breaks or
Is there an artist that you like that you think does that skill really well in terms of how they use the language and their word choice is almost rhythmically and
yeah, artist. Um, I think Luke Combs does a lot of good like storytelling kind of songs like that. So like even though I'm leaving, like I think that's a great song for just kind of telling a story. Um,
yeah, that one's on Greg's list.
yeah. Uh, let's see
That's
what's
it's not a bad no, but no, it's not.
I'm just teasing you, Greg.
I figured you out.
I think one other thing I'd say is learning my scales. Like I'm still very poor musically. Like I have so much to learn there. So like vocally I can kind of hear them, but like on my guitar, like I need to learn the fretboard more properly. I need to learn my proper scales. So like they'll help with the melody, a lot easier if you're just not trained or not there yet musically. So like learning the fundamentals, essentially.
So that's interesting you say that. In the Guitar Player's Toolkit, one of the videos that we use, it's on melody. And this is a YouTuber instructor, and his whole take was take a song you love to listen to. And he used two examples. One was a Michael Jackson song. And you play, you look up the chords and you play the song, but instead of, you almost play it finger style. So you're trying to play the melody that they're singing note for note, kind of what you were saying. That's what the scale gives you all of the different notes you can um, sing or harmonize off of or find melodies and harmonies in. So without even knowing the scale, he's kind of saying, take a song you love and get in the habit of just finding lyrically what they're doing with it. And those are all the notes where your harmonies and melodies and all that will live. And I thought that was kind of, without getting into the theory and the musicality of it and stuff, that was kind of an interesting way. Because it's for some of us, if I don't know my scales, if I don't know my G major scale, but I'm playing, I'm bringing out Dylan's voice in Knocking on Heaven's Door, that's a little bit easier for my ear, you know, to find his vocal line in it. Um, and you know, he says you find one or two of the vocal lines and you now try playing those notes together. There you have your first kind of harmony, and kind of interesting. Is there any, like, when you get stuck, is there any things, go-tos that you have found, exercises you have found that help you get unstuck, whether that's I'm at a writer's block or I can't come up with music or
Yeah, a couple tools. So like you're not always going to be motivated. You're not always going to be inspired. So like just kind of pushing through that feeling sometimes, like sticking to the tools that you know. So um if for instance, like I can't think of anything off the fly, like I have this cool chord progression, but I don't know what to write about, I'm gonna go back to my destination writing to really just stream of conscious, see what comes out, pick the nuggets out of there, and then get back to that chord progression with something. So like I'll definitely lean onto that. Um, and the first thing I mentioned, like I guess another way to build your kind of melody skill would be take hits already. So just learning the chord progressions, um, but writing a different melody to it. Um, so like any song you like, any genre, just I mean, if it's the chords, just get away from the melody that they're singing and try to write your own. So that was one tip that I found pretty useful and helpful too. Um, when you're starting out, because it's already worked, you just gotta find a new melody. So
right.
Have you ever tried using a looper?
I don't use it too often. I know a lot of people that do. Like you can kind of hop on YouTube and just kind of find chord progressions or loops to write to.
Talking about
I
the,
probably could do it more, but
talking
yeah.
about effects pedal, where you can literally play whatever you want, and you tap it and record it, and you tap
Oh,
it,
the pedal.
train it in sequence.
I'm not too much of a pedal
Oh yeah.
user. I know a lot of people that do, but I'm pretty much just an acoustic guy. So
Joseph, let me ask you though, I think what you're asking, just like Jess, you have your notebook with lyrical and thought ideas on there.
yep.
You have a looper pedal that is recording your chord progression ideas, your musical
Mm,
ideas. So I have a tiny little looper that's, you know, has 99 slots, and it's some of that is in the moment, just kind of playing around. It's kind of the opposite of lyric writing. This is what we guitar players do. And you'll just be noodling, but when you find something you like, you hit record, and now it's saved there. You could go, it's kind of the journal, you could go back to it. Is that kind of what you were saying, Joseph, about, you know, capturing that?
Well, You can capture stuff through it. Right? I got one that has a double channel, so you can play
Play over it.
verse, and you can literally switch between the two. Or you can set it where you can play one and then play the other one, so you can actually turn them on and off individually. But what I'm saying is, a lot of times you could do like if you play something you're trying to write lyrics to, you don't have to concentrate on writing or playing and trying to write. So you can literally play it, record it, and then you can listen to it over and over again, and then start laying where your lyrics go.
And
Yeah,
I love that. And because melody is not my strong point, I will use it for chord progressions. I got a ton of chord progressions, but then I'll let it play. It's an infinite loop, and I can play around then with single notes in my vocal range on the guitar where I'm trying to pick out, melody that would obviously work over that chord progression. That's a great idea. Yeah, us guitar players, we don't have like the skills that you guys, when the lyric side of it, last week I talked about, like, if you take the 6 songwriting skills that she talks about, 3 of them are language based and lyrics, 3 of them are music based. Well, for the lyric based, we have all this idea: read a lot, journal, be very observant about key phrases, all the ways you hear and use language. The music part of it, now next week is harmony, so we'll see what she's going to get us into. But as a guitar player, that's where a lot of other kind of things like a looper pedal would be akin to our journal, because we can always go back to it, we could add on to it, we could layer it.
I never even thought about using the looper like that. That's
I
great.
love my looper pedal. I love for a whole bunch of other reasons, but it's
Yeah.
just a fun little thing to have available. And it's just like what Joseph said. It's kind of like, I won't have it on, but I'll be kind of playing around with something that I kind of like. I'm repeating and I'm like, there might be something here, and I'll just get it on there. Sometimes I'll use I'll just use actually the video on my phone so that I have the audio of it. But a lot of times if I'm in the basement, I'll just use my looper pedal and bank it away.
Yeah, that's a great point too, Joseph, that you made, like where a lot of you that are starting out, like where you're not having to concentrate on playing the guitar and singing at the same time. So like having that loop just kind of play where you can focus on the melody. Yeah, it's good. Just kind of get that on repeat, that chord progression. I guess I do something similar sometimes where like I just use my voice memo on the phone and just kind of will record some stuff. If it's a little more intricate. But yeah, that's a good suggestion.
There's
right.
one other thing. Digitech makes a pedal called Trio that adds a bass line and a drum line. So when you get to the point where you think it's getting kind of baked, your song, you can try in different tempos, different speeds and things, kind of play around with it and have some other instruments in the mix too.
Did you say that was an app or that was
It's a pedal called, it's from a company
Okay.
called Digitech. It's called a Trio pedal, bass and drums.
Nice.
Any other questions for Jesse or Ken? Any parting thoughts? We're good until 10. We don't have to get off. It's 9:54, but I just wanted to make sure we're addressing any questions you had on the material that we covered.
Anybody? Going once? We must have covered it all perfectly.
Yep. No question.
Oh wait, I'm sure I have something to say.
There we go.
Yeah.
Greg's still working on his set log, his playlist.
His playlist, yeah.
For the rest of our lives. All right, so next week it's on harmony. Any of you take a peek yet? Have you gone through the harmony chapter? Mr. Spielberg?
Dan the man.
I'm totally confused. No, actually, I did
That
learn.
was not our point.
I did learn a great deal from these lessons. It's just like I said in the little text that I put on Guitars for Vets. It's just kind of overwhelming. This particular chapter was. There was so much stuff, and but it's really great. And so I'd written that, I'd written about 3 verses of a song, And after listening to this, it's like I got all these ideas on how to change it to make it more relatable. And so it's really been good. I'm struggling to keep ahead and keep up with it.
You know, it'd be
And
really
I-
cool if you would, no pressure, you don't have to, but it'd be all cool at some point if you have like currently what you have written and then how you changed it to make it better. And we could see the A and B. That would be kind of interesting to see. But you say that it's like, you know, drinking water from a fire hose, but you're doing exactly what Andrea's giving you these different tools to kind of relook at your songs and songs in general and lyrics particularly. So it sounds like you're kind of getting it.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's so much to get.
Hey, but whenever we do the extended lessons, you know, in a month or so, we'll slow it down and we'll be able to spend more time on this lyric part. So that's going to be good too.
That was our plan all along, was to get you frustrated on the material so we can get you frustrated later. Dan, I do want to just say something though, because you are one of our premier guitar teachers.
Yes, the best.
And because you also learned how to play guitar, I want you to go back and remember when you were learning guitar and you were in the callus stage. That was a very tough stage for all of us, and it's a very tough stage for your students. If you could get through the callus stage, you could get through some of the Andrea's stuff here, right?
Oh yeah, I can feel the calluses already.
The lyric calluses.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is fantastic. Any parting thoughts, wisdom, questions before we call it a night, Jesse? Thank you so much. Before you sign off, if you guys want to hit his Instagram account or his YouTube channel, I put those links up there early, or you could, of course, just Google him and you'll find his stuff. Are you going to be joining us for any other classes going forward, Jesse?
I'd like maybe to revisit the melody one. I'll see if I can make it, but yeah.
That'd be
in 2
great. Well,
weeks.
your
2 weeks. All right.
yeah, I think, did I say melody? I think is harmony. What's next?
Harmony's next, and then it goes to melody. Yeah.
Seems kind of backwards. You'd almost want to start with the melody so you could harmonize off it. But what do I know? I'm not a natural songwriter, so.
I think her harmony is more
Y'all are
chords.
wearing green, so there's a problem there. Some of y'all are wearing green. What's up?
Say that again. You're cutting out.
Some of y'all are not wearing green.
I'm not Irish.
I got kind of a
I wish I was Irish. I'm a little bit Irish. No luck's given. I like that.
That's nice.
I'm wearing green, but I can't show you where. Nor would you want to see it. Nor would you want to
Her
see
harmony, it covers more of the chords than it does, I mean, really harmony. So maybe that's why she did it. You're doing the chord progressions and things like that, and then going into harmony. I mean, with harmony, and then going into melody after that. Is my thoughts.
Well, don't forget to use the feed in CAVARTS if you guys have
Yes.
questions or any of the reactions to either the material we've covered or the material that we're going through. We will be on next week. I think we're only scheduled for an hour next week, next Monday at 8:30. So it's all going to be about harmony.
Well, we made it an hour and a half tonight, nothing from the Fab Four.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I
thank you for the time.
had to put more
appreciate
time on there. We
I
called
appreciate
it
it.
time. It was an hour, and then we had Jesse time. So
Yeah. Just in time.
Yeah, no Beatles.
all
Well,
right,
thank you
everyone.
again for having me. I really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right.
And
Have
we'll
a good
see
night.
you next week.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you, Ken. Thank you,
Take care.
Jesse.